Some thoughts on this Alfred Baumler and the Einbissenstimmung of the current moment. So this comment was made by Baumler, who was kind of rushed in ahead of Martin Heidegger to enter the Nazi Party. I think I don't know if it was a full year before Heidegger, but sometime before Heidegger. Um, and I continue with my thought of Heidegger's connection with the Nazi Party is I feel like what I'm learning from this Baumler stuff is strengthening it. My view that I've had for many years, which is basically it's basically based on what Strauss said in some of his seminars. That was the soil for it, I think, when because Strauss points to the remarks in the book on the sophist, where there's the dedication to Paul Natorp, and he's talking about the atmosphere of the German youth around World War I, and with connection to a peace conference somewhere in the I don't know, I think around Berlin or something, in some wilderness area not that far from Berlin, I think, some specific mountain. It's mentioned in the sophist text. But I think this Einbissenstimmung remark that's made ironically against Heidegger in order to say, oh, Heidegger just wants this little, it's, so far as I understand it, I don't know, nobody really speaks 1930s German because we don't live there. Again, I know that's kind of a strange assertion, but again, this is part of the whole idea of the Zuhanden. So what people felt their ecstasies were. So I'll try to show what Zuhanden means through this current Charlie Kirk assassination. It has some reference to something that can't be transmitted through the language. You have to be in the midst of it and feel certain things as obstacles to your goals and certain things not as obstacles, and that structures it. So this has something to do with the little bit of mood, or attunement is the usual translation, attunement. But I think somehow in idiomatic German, Einbissenstimmung, the reason this term was used to ironically jibe Heidegger is that it means something like finding the mood or something, a little bit of mood or a little bit of ambiance or something like this is the place. I guess it's like the American phrase, this is the place, or this must be the place, used in connection to music or whatever, the makeout room or whatever it is. So with connection to so let's give a possible scenario about the Kirk assassination. Supposing it's not, it's not mutually exclusive to, say, Dugan immediately says Soros is behind it and so on, Palindrome is behind it. It's not immediately at all contradictory to look at it from the point of view of here's a lone individual gunman. However much the conspiracy theorists don't like that, because we can assume there are some people, on this scenario, that there's some people that were in some way disposed to do this kind of thing, and then they were in some way manipulated and given the pushed in that direction and given the opportunity and so on. So you could have a combination, and the dispositive source of the action could be from some interested parties which didn't actually do it. But in any case, supposing the motive of just from the point of view of the individual was that he had seen there's the connection with Kirk and Trump, and that he thought, okay, there's concentration camps in Florida, and there's an increase in the concentration of wealth around the oligarchs, around the financial and tech billionaires, corresponding to this raise in the debt by the big beautiful bill. So if that's the motive, then the things that are obstacles to setting things right are part of the Zuhandan environment in a way that once you hone into that political mentality, then you could see, one, this is something you can't really pass it off as something to do with an individual alone, because it's something raging over the earth and all its people in a way. And I mean, for instance, if you think of Trump, it strikes me the most obvious way to understand Trump is, what does America first mean? It means America is competing to be the place of world domination. And then they say every other country has equal right to compete to be the center of the world domination. Whereas before Davos, Europe to some extent, the Basel Council and had much more power. But now Trump is saying the oligarchy will be centered on Washington and will exercise, this is the commanding heights now. So if you think about it that way, then you have a kind of essence that you could try to attune yourself to, and then you say, what is the stand one is taking? And I guess I'm just speaking extemporaneously, so let me just throw in that I think the shot, it was to the neck, there's a lot of blood. So far as I understand it, that's not the type of shot a trained assassin would likely make, although you can make all kinds of double thought things. So maybe they do it that way to throw off the trail or whatever. It seems to me an assassin would take a shot to the pate, to the head, not to the neck. Because to the neck, you think maybe he'll survive. It sounded for a moment like he was going to survive. But okay, putting that, I mean, that's what kind of makes me just sort of instinctively jump to the sort of lone gunman type of idea, which is so, I know it's so distasteful to so many people. But again, I don't think the lone gunman and the manipulation of a lone individual who has the propensities and has that kind of attitude by other by agents, by whoever, is incompatible. There's not incompatible theses. But let's think about this in terms of, what does it mean to be attuned to a wartime situation? So Dugan is saying the honest situation is when assassination is the means of removing the sovereign. Otherwise, the sovereign has total power. And then, in a certain way, I mean, you think about Walter Rathenau, the assassination of Walter Rathenau is sort of introducing the period leading up to the end of the Weimar and the beginning of the Dritte Reich, for the Walpurgisnacht. And really the death of Hindenburg, I think, is the beginning of the full military dictatorship, actually. So it wasn't as early as is sometimes said. But in any case, if there breaks out a time when people are attuned, or their Zuhandan or their ready-to-hand situation is such that they consider as many things as obstacles to tolerable existence, so including the very existence of concentration camps, the existence of, I mean, I know that one can make the argument and say these concentration camps are only in accord with the existing laws on immigration and the existing, and even if the enforcement is a little bit of an overstep, it's not at heart. What it's doing is still casting deep shadows on the heart of the law as it exists. And then I think the other side of that is, but is that law in accordance with reason? Is it a good law? And so maybe the fact of the enforcement of that law brings that to a confrontation where people take sides. That plays a role. So then this question is, are we now in a situation where more and more people are, as it were, honing into this attunement and then going to exist in accordance with it? So we could say, from one point of view, so what I'm doing is doing sort of passionate theorizing, as it were. It's not that there's a situation as it is merely, but the what is depends somewhat on what the attunement is. And what the attunement is isn't merely a matter of individuals or subjective, but it has something to do with that this situation that's raging over the earth and all its people is something one can attune into, and then it determines the instincts and in Nietzsche's sense, there's a kind of hierarchy between these instincts, which sort of correspond to Heidegger's Zuhanden or attunement, or I don't know, maybe the bottom of the world egg in this Winonian terms. And then there's instincts are life, and then there's the art on top of that, where art means something like technique, the artificial things built. And then there's on top of that the purely theoretical stance, which has no interest to ask about the Stimmung or the Zuhanden or the thing which can't be given in general objective Newtonian metaphysics or Galilean inertial frame of reference, galaxy way of thinking. So take it this way, I think maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just we're impressed by it because it just happened. But on the other hand, maybe this is an increase in the tensions at the sort of foot of these showy triumphs of Trump with respect to basically it kind of looks like his version is winning in America. I mean, he's not even been in for 1 year, and we have a huge changes. So if people are sort of saying by law he's in for 4 more years, the law is kind of falling into obeisance possibly, even though there's some like ostensible rulings in his favor. Or ostensible is the wrong word. They're not. Well, they're kind of merely apparent rulings in his favor, because they have to be reviewed by the higher court, by SCOTUS. So in a way there's ostensible rulings against him, but that's almost like the very occasion to, it's almost like something that will in the long run make his position stronger, right? So if people are seeing that and then they're saying 3 years more, then you could see where an attunement that thinks they're there must be a time to the buck must stop here. I mean, it's kind of, Trump is sort of the guy that says the buck never stops. The buck is always somewhere else. But somebody would say the buck must stop here with respect to this. I could kind of see that.